I'm John Kaiser at the Metals Investor Forum in Vancouver. It's January 17th, 2025. I am with Chris Herald, CEO of Solitario Resources Corp. Chris, welcome to Vancouver.
Thank you, John. It's a pleasure to be back again.
Yes. So your big project is Golden Crest, and it's an unusual project because since you acquired it in 2021 or something like that, you've had to wait a long time to get the U.S. Forest Service to approve a plan of operations to drill it. During this period, you've been able to do an awful lot of surface sampling, and you've come up with a great number of values, up to 3 ounce per ton. Mm-hmm. And yet there is very little evidence that this has ever been drilled. Maybe Homestake supposedly drilled several holes, scout holes, but never went back. And you've also compared the LiDAR survey of prospect pits to the North District, where Homestake and the Wharf project are operating. There's 90 million ounces there. And this may be a mirror image of what's going on up there. But how can something like this have sat there, ignored, for the 100+ years since the Homestake gold rush began?
Yeah, that's perplexed us right from the beginning, John. When we took this project on, it was considered a barren land, our project area. We now control 35,000 acres. We staked all that not as moose pasture. We actually found anomalies before we staked. So we probably did 10 rounds of staking, and as we found more anomalies, we kept staking. I think it was missed for a couple reasons. One is it's covered by a lot of forest and grass. There's not much outcrop there, so there isn't much to look at on surface. Another reason is, as you mentioned, we found some tremendously high grades on surface. And, we've actually taken 100-gram plus samples, crushed them, panned them, and you can't find a speck of gold in it, and yet they do contain well in excess of 100 grams. And the old timers, they relied on panning gold to confirm that there was gold there. They didn't have the benefit of taking it to a nearby assay lab or anything like that. So they walked away. And finally, Homestake, which really controlled the northern Black Hills for 100 years, they just, for some reason, were only fixated on older rock mineralization, the Homestake Formation, 2 billion-year-old gold mineralization, even though some of the earliest discoveries were at Wharf, which had 3.5 million ounces of high-grade gold in the neighborhood of 1 ounce per ton, and another 5 million ounces of lower-grade gold, anywhere from 0.5 gram to 2.5 grams in the lower grade. So I think they missed it for those reasons. Everyone thought Homestake, after being there 100 years, found everything of significance there was to find.
So the Northern District had the advantage that, for whatever tectonic reasons, the layer cake that got laid down in the whatever billion years since the Homestake deposit formed, it's been disrupted all over, so that you have basement exposed where the Homestake deposit itself outcrops. You have the lower Deadwood Formation of the Wharf system exposed in one area, and you even have paleoplacers that were shed during that billion-year period of nothingness that sit at the unconformity. So it was obviously much easier to find all that gold with the focused effort. But in your area, as you suggested, it's kind of like this Mission Canyon rock covering most of it, and the lodgepole in the area of your Ponderosa plan of operations application. So there's no basement exposed, but suppose there is basement-hosted banded iron formation present. How on earth, drilling through 400 meters of layer cake, starting with sort of seemingly boring rock, can you ever hope to spear one of these Homestake-style deposits that's much deeper than it is actually has a surface expression? Is that just a pipe dream that might happen by accident, or is there a strategy available for stalking the homestake type deposit in the basement?
Yeah, well, good question, John. And when we look at this district, you have the Precambrian that's old. It doesn't occur, as you mentioned, on our property. It's below us. We have the Deadwood Formation, which is an important producer. It's also below us. We don't see it on our property. Deadwood was our primary target because it's big. It's 4 kilometers long. It's a kilometer wide. It's a really kind of an easy target to shoot at. And every hole we've drilled has gone not only through the upper layers, which we see on the surface and has 3 good gold zones on surface, and we've confirmed it in 2 of those zones. We haven't confirmed it in a third. We confirmed it in the lower Deadwood. And then each of those 11 holes that we finished, we've gone into the Precambrian. So it is a little bit of a pipe dream that we're going to hit it out of a vacuum. But that's not the homestake, which is the granddaddy of all the deposits, 60 million ounce plus endowment. But there's some clues to finding homestake formation. One is if you go to the old homestake district, sitting on top of the Precambrian, right on top of the ore body, is a paleoplacer that existed about 600 million years ago, just like the mother lode placers you have. And that deposited a pediment of placer gold that's big and it's horizontal. And
So much bigger than the surface
way
footprint
bigger than the
of
footprint.
the homestake. Okay.
Yeah. So if we start hitting paleoplacers, we'll be able to vector into the source of those. And over the course of probably 10 or 20 holes that intersect the paleoplacer, we think we can work back to a really strong homestake style gold formation. So that's one of the things we're looking for when we drill into the Precambrian and the boundary between the Deadwood and the Precambrian zone. So we can use science to get back to it. It's not going to be pure luck, but you do have to build kind of a database to find it.
And in the drilling that you've done, is the basement roughly 400 meters beneath the surface?
It's as shallow as 300 meters.
Oh, okay.
And we think when we start drilling over at the Ponderosa side, which we're currently have an application to drill there, once we start drilling there, that may be as shallow as 250 meters because it's been eroded more. So homestake was found because all the carbonate rocks that we have on our property have been eroded around right at the homestake mine. And then as you go a little further away, you start seeing the lowest Paleozoic rock, the Deadwood. It's well mineralized. And you go a little further away, on top of the Deadwood, you have things that's called like the Lodge Pole and the Midship Canyon. And those are receptive gold horizons in the old district. But most of those have been eroded away. But our property, we have the entire Mission Canyon and the entire Lodge Pole essentially available to be mineralized and discovered.
Okay, so of the 11 holes you've drilled, 3 remain to be reported. In September, you reported the first batch, which included the 3 drilled into the downpour target, which had some really good values at surface in Mission Canyon rock. The intersection was good. It was open, was close to surface, but it wasn't the same sort of grade. But in early December, we reported another batch, and it seemed like most of them were not interesting, but one hole number 8, had a good intersection, and it was 41 meters of 1 gram per ton gold, with finishing in 2 meters of 3.4 gram per ton gold. And this hole you had to stop. You couldn't get it into the basement because you had some sort of caving problems or something like that. But in your press release, you guys were over the top with excitement about this hole, whose grade and width was not as good as what you had from downpour. Why is that hole? Why should the market treat that hole as a major discovery hole despite not having the kind of barn burner grades that the market expects for a discovery?
Well, it is the first deadwood, lower deadwood mineralization found outside the district. And to have 41 meters of 1 gram, that's a pretty powerful gold system. And that's similar to what you find in Wharf. And as I said before, about 2/3 of Wharf was lower grade, and the other third was high grade. And we think we're probably close to a high grade feeder system there. And the Wharf system is more or less continuous over 4 kilometers. We have a structure on that this hole intersected, a major structure that we think is most giant gold deposits are in or very near major deep structures. There's structures everywhere on the planet, but most of them aren't major. This structure that we're on, it's called the Fanny Peak monocline. It's the only hole that penetrated into that. We didn't get through it either. And we have gold anomalies over that for 10 kilometers. And this is almost like a pot shot into that structure. And with 41 meters of 1 gram, and it was getting stronger the deeper we drilled, it's wide open to expansion in all directions, at depth and along strike, east and west. We don't and north and south. So next year, or this year, we're in 2025 now. This year, our first drill holes will be offsetting that, and hopefully we'll be able to drill completely through it. We don't know how far that mineralization goes. It could go a long ways. So it's a very exciting hole, and you're right. It is what we were looking for. And to hit it in the first 11 holes on a total greenfields project, I think is a pretty phenomenal success. So we're excited about that.
Now, one issue is within that north-south structure, you have only one drill platform permitted, and you can fan maybe 3 holes from it. And then you have to go back to the U.S. Forest Service and apply for modifications. And based on your past experience, it could be 2026 before you can really chase the lower deadwood within this structure. Now, at the same time, you are optimistic that this year, perhaps before summer drill season begins, you'll get approval for the Ponderosa plan of operations. And this is what everybody in the market is waiting for, because the surface results that you've reported there are off the scale compared to what you have in the Golden Crest part where you initially started, Sleeping Beauty, Kaiser, and all that. If you get the Ponderosa approval and are able to start drilling, are you going to have the same problem where, okay, we've got something great, but then we have to go back hat and cap in hand to the U.S. Forest Service to be able to start following this stuff to where it's going?
Well, no. The Golden Crest plan of operations was put in place after our first season. The database we now have for the whole property, both Golden Crest and to the east, Ponderosa, is about 4 or 5 times bigger than what we had then. We have a much better understanding, and when we submitted the Ponderosa, the pending application, we had a lot more data. We also proposed more drill holes. It's around 45 drill platforms that we proposed. The coverage is good. The location is better relative to the anomalies we discovered. So, we're going to be able to drill probably 2 or 3 seasons off the permitted platforms right now. However, we do think permitting will be relatively smoother moving forward. Our drill permit was the first drill permit in 20 years in the Northern Black Hills for mineral exploration. So, we had a Forest Service that was cautious on moving forward. They wanted to make sure that, they were doing a good job. They wanted to make sure that we were going to do a good job. We now have a year under our belt. No problems with the drilling program. The holes are all reclaimed now. They've all been filled in and grass seed put on it. And so, I think our reputation now with Forest Service is enhanced. in terms of they know who we are, they know we're serious, and they know we'll do what we say we're going to do. So I think permitting moving forward will be faster. It's not going to be less rigorous in terms of what we have to do, but there's a better understanding within the Forest Service and us on what works.
I think the people do not understand that professional exploration groups know how to reclaim their drill sites. I know one example, they were also dealing with the U.S. Forest Service, and the CEO got a call from the inspector complaining, "I don't think you drilled where you were supposed to." Yes, we did. It was so cleaned up that the inspector couldn't even tell that there had been. So hopefully that starts getting through people's heads that you guys, when you're exploring, don't leave a desecrated landscape behind you. Now, one final question. In 2017, Nexa and Solitario produced a PEA for the Florida Canyon Zinc project in Peru, which envisioned a 2,500 ton per day underground mining operation. At your base case price of $1.20 per pound zinc, the economics met development hurdles such as after-tax NPV matching or exceeding CapEx and IRR being at least 15%. Since then, CapEx and OpEx costs have inflated 25 to 30%, while zinc is still around $1.20 per pound. If you updated the PEA with current cost, its economics very likely will fall well short of development hurdles, making this project dead in the water. But what has Nexa accomplished during the past 7 years, which has kept Florida Canyon alive as a future mine development candidate, one in which you have a 30% carried through production interest?
Yeah, it's a good point. We think the PEA as it stands is still valid, even though costs have gone up, certainly for operating and for capital. And one of the main reasons we think it still works, and Nexa, I think, believes it still works, is they did metallurgical work in the last 2 years that demonstrated that our recoveries of zinc was higher, meaningfully higher, I think about 10% higher, and the concentrate grade was going to be higher, which also lowers cost. And finally, we had about a 50 or 60% increase in our overall resource base than what was put in the PEA. And so when you have that kind of increase, you more than likely increase your throughput on your planned mine development. And we had a 2,500 ton per day base case. I think we can easily go to 3,000, 3,500 tons per day in looking at today's resource as compared to what it was in 2017. So when you added recovery, enhanced concentrate grades, which lowers costs, and a larger deposit, which lowers unit costs further because you're operating at a higher mining rate, we think that project is still very viable. When you look at that, the overall grade, it's in the neighborhood of 10% mining grade, and that's one of the highest grade zinc deposits in the world. So when you look at worldwide production, it certainly is of the size and the grade of things that are profitable today. So we're comfortable that project's going to move forward. Nexa continues to work on it every year, although they don't drill on it every year. And right now they're looking at a new interpretation of the resource. We'll see. I think there's some benefits that'll come out of that. And overall, I think they see this as a very viable project moving forward, but we need to demonstrate that with some additional information.
Yeah, I think something investors don't understand is that the current price of Solitario reflects the fundamental value of the Florida Canyon project, and Golden Crest is an absolute freebie with unlimited upside potential, if indeed a mirror image of the 90 million ounce northern Black Hill Homestake District ends up being demonstrated. I have been speaking with Chris Herald, CEO of Solitario Resources Corp. at the Metals Investors Forum in Vancouver. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, John.